This is a lecture for Adler Graduate School course number 715, Holistic Assessment and Metaphor Therapy. This lecture is on the construct of the fictional final goal and on a strategy for coming to an understanding of a person's goal based on their speech, behavior, or attitude. The construct of goal is fundamental to individual psychology. Like the other components of the lifestyle, the goal is a fiction, and it is considered to be the organizing principle for the lifestyle beliefs about self, the world, and other people. In individual psychology, the person is thought of as moving through life as if they were moving toward a fictional goal, which is a figment of their own creativity. Fictional goal, guiding fiction, and fictional finalism are several of the terms Adler used to describe his conceptualization of personality. Several core concepts of individual psychology are interrelated with the construct of goal and the teleological analysis of behavior. First, the building blocks of personality, including the goal, are beliefs or fictions. We act as if our fictions are true instead of being figments of our creativity that have evolved through our unique family constellation and developmental path. As Adler put it, quote, "The human mind shows an urge to capture into fixed forms, though unreal assumptions, that is, fictions, that which is chaotic, always in flux, and incomprehensible." End quote. Second, the dynamic force of human activity is moving from a felt minus to a felt plus situation, striving for a uniquely defined feeling of significance and superiority. Psychological activity is thought of as movement, and this movement is best understood as being defined by the goal toward which one is moving. Early in life, each of us creates a fictional goal of significance, success, and superiority. Third, the goal unifies all of the psychological movement of the person into a self-consistent organization, which Adler called the style of life. In 1912, he wrote, quote, "We can comprehend every single life phenomenon as if the past, the present, and the future together with a superordinated guiding idea were present in its traces." End quote. It is clear that much of the time this goal works out of our awareness, and in individual psychology, this is the essential component of the unconscious. Finally, the goal has to be understood as idiographic. As Adler says in What Life Should Mean to You, quote, "The goal of superiority with each individual is personal and unique. It depends on the meaning he or she gives to life. And this meaning is not a matter of words. It is built upon his or her style of life and runs through it like a strange melody of his or her own creation." End quote. After World War I, Adler developed a creative and unique format for child guidance, incorporating education and reorientation strategies with teachers and with parents. Over the years, the traditions of open forum counseling have evolved, and Rudolf Dreikurs was a primary moving force in implementing these child guidance clinics and parenting classes across the United States. He identified 4 different goals of misbehavior which expressed the child's mistaken assumptions about being significant and having a place in his or her family and social world. In his writings, Dreikurs defines a constellation of beliefs which are guiding the child toward this misbehavior and which reflect the child's discouragement about being able to find significance in a socially useful way. Dreikurs also defined several strategies for identifying the goal of a misbehavior, as well as strategies for educating parents about the desire for significance that are motivating the misbehavior and encouraging them to adopt parenting strategies that are not punitive or shaming. Karen Horney was a German psychiatrist who was originally trained in psychoanalysis in Berlin and then came to America in 1932 to work and teach in New York. She affiliated with a group of psychiatrists who were disengaging from the Freudian psychoanalytic tradition, most notably Harry Stack Sullivan, Erich Fromm, Frieda Fromm-Reichmann, and Clara Thompson. All of these theorists were becoming less oriented to drive theory and more social in their conceptualization, and thus more akin to Adler than to Freud. They were finally expelled from the New York Psychoanalytic Institute in 1941 for failure to adhere to strict psychoanalytic technique and theory. Horney identified 3 patterns of disturbed relating, which she described as neurotic solutions to the problem of feeling helpless in a hostile world. Moving towards people recognizes others as potential resources who can support us and help reduce our anxiety. We hence seek affection, approval, and someone close who can save us. If we choose to move away from others, we fear criticism and the harm that other people may bring, and so we pull back from them or hold parts of them at a safe distance. Finally, we may seek to control or oppose others and reduce the threat that others represent. Identifying the fictional final goal is a core competency in understanding a person's style of life. Let's look at the steps we can take to do this. In his book, What Life Should Mean to You, Adler tells us, quote, "The best way to understand an expression or symptom is, first of all, to reduce it in outline to a bare movement." As an example, he examines stealing. He notes that stealing is to remove property from another person to oneself, and goes on to say, quote, "Let us now examine the goal of the movement. The goal is to enrich oneself and to feel more secure by possessing more. The point at which the movement sets out is therefore a feeling of being poor and deprived. The next step is to find out in what circumstances the individual is placed and in what conditions he or she feels deprived. Finally, we can see whether he or she is taking the right way to change these circumstances and overcome his or her feelings of being deprived, whether the movement is in the right direction or whether he or she has mistaken the method of securing what he desires." End quote. Once we have reduced the symptom or expression to bare movement and hypothesized a felt inferiority that is fueling the movement, our next step is to stretch the line of movement out and sight along it to see where it is going. Quoting Adler again, quote, "The most important question of the healthy and the diseased mental life is not whence, but whither. Only when we know the effective direction-giving goal of a person may we try to understand his or her movements. In this whither, the cause is contained." Now let's look at a case example from Adler's casebook. There is a copy of the case on the course page. He describes a 40-year-old man who came to him because he found himself unable to speak to some people. In social surroundings, this man was overcome by a tension like stage fright. He trembled, was abashed, and felt a sensation of choking. He had married a widow 12 years his senior, who spoiled him, very much as his mother had done before. With her, and with a few intimate friends, as well as with his customers, he could converse without any difficulty, but his behavior could not stand the test of any wider circle of society. This allows us to identify a line of movement. This man becomes tense in social settings, but not in all interactions with people. He is able to talk with his wife, a few friends, and with his customers. His specific felt inferiority is not evident, but inferiority feelings are evident in his need to be spoiled, suggesting a belief that he is only significant when he is getting special attention. Dreikurs would be considering a goal of attention, and Horney would be looking at a solution of moving toward others. Adler could not find the clue to this strange situation until the man mentioned that he had prophetic dreams. From this information, Adler suspected that the man's goal of superiority was to be a prophet and to be in a privileged and unique relationship with God. Adler goes on to note that if this man were to speak freely in society, he would be in danger of betraying some error in his knowledge which would ruin his fame as a clairvoyant. As Adler puts it, quote, "In the tension of facing this possibility of defeat, he choked, and his clairvoyance was thus defended by a mysterious speechlessness." End quote. There is a goal identification exercise in week 4 that starts with another of Adler's cases, a 50-year-old man who is depressed. The case study is available on the course page in Unit 5. In week 4, your task is to use the goal identification process, movement, felt inferiority, whither, to hypothesize the fictional final goal of the man's symptom of depression. For most cases, I have found the stem, "I am only significant when," to be the best format to express a fictional final goal.